Have you seen this picture around the school? It's a picture of Mary Aikenhead, who set up a group of nuns called the Religious Sisters of Charity. The Sisters of Charity opened our school a long time ago in 1958. Let's have a look at Mary Aikenhead's life and at some of the work she did to help people who were poor or sick. You'll also see how the Sisters of Charity continue doing that work today. Mary Aikenhead was born in Cork on January 19th in 1787, many years ago. We remember her especially on that date every year. Her mother's name was also Mary and her father's name was David. He had a chemist's shop in the city and the family was rich. Mary was not very healthy when she was a baby, so her parents sent her to live in the country with a lady called Mrs. Rourke. They thought the air in the countryside would be better for her health. She grew up with the Rourkes and became friends with the people who lived near them. Many of these people were very poor, and Mary saw how difficult their lives could be. Very often there wasn't enough food for the children, and if anyone was sick, there wasn't enough money to go to the doctor or to buy medicine. Mary always remembered this, and when she went back to live with her own family, she saw that the poor people in the city had very difficult lives. Every time Mary went out with her friends around the streets of Cork, she saw people who had no homes, people who never had enough to eat, and people whose clothes were old and ragged. She and her friends were often asked to help mothers whose children were very sick. Mary did as much as she could to help, but she knew that one or two people could not do enough on their own. At night she asked God to help her to find a way to do more. A priest called Father Murray heard about Mary. He invited her to Dublin to help him put together a group of young women who wanted to spend their lives caring for the poor. She travelled to Dublin to meet him, and she agreed to be the leader of the group or the order. First, she had to go to England for 3 years to learn about being a nun. When she came back to Dublin, she was 28 years old. She began her work in Dublin in a home for girls who had no parents. But she and her sisters soon began to go out around the city, visiting the homes of people who were poor or sick. They were very busy. Mary knew that the best way to help these people and their children was to teach them, so they would be able to get good jobs and earn enough money to help themselves. She and her sisters opened their first school in Gardiner Street in Dublin, where most of the people were very poor and had no school at all. They soon opened other schools in Dublin and in Cork. These schools are still there, but they have changed a lot since they were first used. Can you think of some things that might have changed? Mary and her sisters were also very worried about the many people who were sick. They met people every day who badly needed hospital care but had no money to pay for it. Mary decided to open a hospital herself and needed to find money to buy a building. She wrote letters to hundreds of rich people telling them what she wanted to do and asking them to help her. With the money that people sent, she bought a big building in the city and opened St. Vincent's Hospital. This hospital is now in a different part of Dublin, but it is still used by thousands of people every day. As well as caring for the poor and the sick, the Sisters of Charity also spent time visiting prisons and working with the prisoners. They sent sisters to Australia, very far away from Ireland, to work with people who had been sent there as prisoners. Other sisters went to countries in Africa and to America, where they set up schools and hospitals to help the poor. They did all of this work and continue to do it today because they believed this is what Jesus would have done. The motto they chose was "The love of Christ urges us," which means that if we want to live like Jesus, we should follow his example and do everything we can to help others. Mary Aikenhead believed that Jesus would help her even if what she wanted to do sometimes seems impossible. By the time she was 44, Mary had become ill again. She carried on working, but she had to use a wheelchair. She could not travel around to convents where her sisters worked. She kept in touch with them by writing letters. Mary died in 1858, and her grave is in Donnybrook in Dublin. The Sisters of Charity went on doing the work that Mary had begun. Sisters went to new countries to help the people there. They built schools and hospitals as they had done in Ireland. Today there are still Sisters of Charity working in schools, in hospitals and in prisons. Do you know anyone who's a Sister of Charity?